Good evening, everyone. On behalf of TaskMed, I would like to welcome you all to Medcast, Insights into Healthcare, a learning initiative at TaskMed. Today, it's a great pleasure to have with us Dr. Savita Jain, who is a consultant endocrinologist and diabetologist at Deep Hospital, Ludhiana, Punjab. We welcome you, ma'am. Ma'am, we look forward to hear from you on today's topic of discussion, insights on diabetic dermopathy. Over to you, Dr. Savita.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. So I would also like to thank you for giving me this opportunity, and I want to thank my audience also. So what I'll be doing in today's discussion is I'll be talking about common dermatological manifestations of diabetes. So I'll be discussing some commonest ones, and I'll be focusing mainly on diabetic dermopathy, which is the commonest lesion. So as such, dermatological manifestations, their incidence, total incidence, if we talk about all the manifestations, it is very common, 30 to 70% in diabetic population. And these lesions, they may either precede the development of diabetes. For example, acanthosis nigricans, it may precede the onset of diabetes for many years. So their presence may indicate that a patient is going to get diabetes, that may indicate that we have to check for diabetes, or they may develop after many years of onset of diabetes. Prevalence of cutaneous manifestations as such is similar in both type 1 and type 2 diabetes, but the lesions may more commonly we get cutaneous infections. So cutaneous infections can occur in anyone, but it is more common in diabetes, especially type 2 diabetes. They can be bacterial, fungal. In today's discussion, I'll not be talking about cutaneous infections as such. So then also some autoimmune related lesions, which are more common in type 1, for example, vitiligo, lichen planus. So they may be more type 1 diabetes. In general, for many of these manifestations, there may not be any specific treatment. So there may be symptomatic treatment or supportive treatment for some cases. For infections, we do have definitive treatment. We give agents according to the type of infection. But in general, in any type of lesion, it tends to have a good metabolic control of diabetes. It may help in preventing or help in curing some of these manifestations. But some of these manifestations may also indicate that patient might be having other complications. For some of these manifestations may be associated with complications of diabetes, like neuropathy, nephropathy, retinopathy. So presence of these manifestations might not be bothering the patient, but if they are present, that means it is very important to check these patients for their complications. So broadly, they can be classified either as lesions which are strongly associated with diabetes. For example, we have necrobiosis lipoidica, strongly associated with diabetes. Then we may have lesions of infective etiology, as I already mentioned, that infections can occur in anyone, but they are more common in diabetes. Then we have lesions which are secondary to complications of diabetes, or lesions related to treatment of diabetes. So it can also be classified as conditions which are associated with insulin resistance. For most common is acanthosis nigricans. Then acrocondones, which are benign fibromas kind of lesions. The areas are similar as acanthosis nigricans, but these are pediculated. Then diabetic dermopathy, eruptive erythemas, diabetic rubeosis, epidermal necrolysis, or Stevens-Johnson syndrome. Then there are conditions associated with type 1 diabetes. For example, vitiligo, lichen planus, necrobiosis lipoidica, diabetic bulle, or bullosis diabeticorum. Then there may be others like scleroderma, diabetic thick yellow skin, pruritus in general, or disseminated granuloma annulare. So I'll be talking about these typical lesions, and then we will discuss about diabetic dermopathy in a little more detail. So the necrobiosis lipoidica. This necrobiosis lipoidica is some very, very rare condition. it is more commonly diabetes. So if we have a patient of necrobiosis lipoidica, 1 in every 4 patients will have diabetes. But as such, it is rare in patients of diabetes. And generally, women are more prone to get this disease. And typically, it occurs in type 1 diabetes, generally in 3rd decade of their life. And mostly it occurs after the onset of diabetes, generally a chronic granulomatous disease. So their lesions, there are generally, it's either a single or it's a group of firm, well demarcated. They are round erythematous papules. And generally after onset, these papules, they expand, they progress into forming plaques, and then circumferential plaques with reddish brown borders, and the center generally becomes yellowish brown, and it is generally atrophic, and the lesions are generally bilateral. Most common site is the pretibial region, and it may also occur in other parts like forearm, scalp, upper this abdomen. So it can occur on other areas also, but the most common site is pretibial region. Generally, they are not symptomatic. They may cause some pruritus. They may be tender. Mostly, they are asymptomatic. The problem is they are prone to get ulcerations, and once if ulcerated, then they may get infections, or they may be painful. If we do not treat them, then also they may resolve, but it takes a long time. So for treatment, we may give, steroids may be used. We generally avoid them in diabetics because they may worsen diabetic control, but topical treatment may be given if they are troublesome. Then lichen planus. So lichen planus is an inflammatory disorder. Actually, it's mucocutaneous inflammatory disorder. The lesions, they are generally, again, they may be present on most commonly on the legs. So they are generally firm erythematous pruritic papules. So pruritus is the main problem in lichen planus, and they may also be located on the thighs, wrist, back. We have diabetic bullae. So these bullae, they generally have a very abrupt onset, mostly seen in men. So they are more commonly seen in males. And the patients, they present with the history that overnight they've suddenly developed a blister, which is generally small to start with. And these blisters, they are firm and they are sterile. And they may then increase in size and become flaccid. So most of the times they resolve themselves in 2 to 6 weeks. But if it is a big blister, we may have to aspirate it. Most of them, they do not need treatment, but it is very important to prevent trauma to this blister, otherwise it may rupture and it may get prone, it may be infected. So we have to treat only if infection is there, otherwise we have to protect it from any injury. Then we talk about eruptive xanthomas. So normally these eruptive xanthomas present because so generally the very high levels are required, more than 2000 milligram per deciliter triglyceride levels develop these eruptive xanthomas. But in diabetics, even a lower triglyceride level can form these eruptive xanthomas. They type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So it's slightly more common in type 2 diabetes, about 2% incidence, and it is 1% in type 1 diabetes. So they can happen anytime, even before the onset of diabetes or after the onset of diabetes. So they are generally eruptions of clusters of glossy pink to yellow papules, 1 to 4 mm in size, and these papules are present over the erythematous surfaces. They are most commonly present on the extensor surfaces of our extremities. They may be present on buttocks also. And they generally asymptomatic. They may be having, some patient may be having pruritus or pain also. And for treatment, generally the treatment is improved glycemia control. Patient may require insulin for glycemia control and to give treatment for hypertriglyceridemia. So then this diabetic rubeosis is something, it is just the chronic erythematous microangiopathic there. So they generally present over the face and the neck region. The importance of this lesion is that it present. it is associated, means it is associated with the microvascular complications like retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy. So presence of this rubiosis means we have to especially look for those complications in patients of diabetes. So coming on to the very common lesion, that is acanthosis nigricans. So this acanthosis nigricans is generally in few years prior to the onset of type 2 diabetes. This is a sign of insulin resistance. So it occurs in both males and females equally. It can occur at any age. It is a sign of insulin resistance actually. So it can occur in diabetes, it can occur in other insulin resistance, acromegaly, Cushing syndrome, PCOS, obesity, and can also occur in some malignancies like gastric adenocarcinomas. So presence of acanthosis means we should look for diabetes, and we should keep a lookout for the symptoms associated with malignancies. So these acanthosis nigricans, these lesions, they are generally multiple. They are poorly demarcated plaques. They are gray to brownish lesions, which are present most commonly on the back of the neck, on the inframammary region, axilla. They can be present on hands, and they are generally asymptomatic. There is no pruritus, no pain. They are just visibly present, and patients may complain. Many patients, they confuse it with melanin. So it is not actually darkening of the skin on melanin which is there. So this happens because of high insulin levels in insulin resistance syndrome. Because of high insulin, there is stimulation of IGF-1 receptors, because of which there is proliferation of more of the treatment for acanthosis nigricans. It is very important to start lifestyle management, healthy diet, exercise, weight loss if patient is obese. In some cases, if blood sugar levels are on higher side, patient is pre-diabetic or diabetic, metformin helps. But most importantly, weight loss helps. So coming on to diabetic dermopathy. So diabetic dermopathy is the most common cutaneous manifestation of diabetes actually. So the lesions are generally rounded. They are dull red plaques. Most commonly they are present on the pretibial surfaces, but they may also be present on other areas like upper arms, upper extremities, rotator malleoli or thighs. They are typically don't have pruritus, and many times these lesions may be self-resolving. So, but I'll be discussing about these lesions in more detail. So among all other cutaneous complications, diabetic dermopathy is the commonest, and it is the most ignored complication. It affects almost 33% of diabetic population. So they are also called as shin spots, because most commonly they are seen on shins or pretibial region. They are multiple, round to oval. They are macules present on the shins. Thighs or forearms may be involved. So what happens is, many times these lesions, they start as something erythematous. Then over next 1 to 2 weeks, they may evolve into some grayish areas. And once, after some time, after about 1.5 to 2 years, these lesions may become atrophic and hyperpigmented. So at the same time, we may find lesions at different stages also. So some lesions may be just early lesions, new forming lesions. Some lesions may be the older lesions showing atrophy, hyperpigmentation. So they may be present at different stages of evolution. The lesions are commoner in men, twice as common, especially in older men. And for diagnosis, at least 4 or more lesions should be there. It's also a marker of microvascular disease. So if present, we should actively look at complications. As such, in any diabetic individual, it is very important to keep looking for complications of diabetes. But if skin lesions are present, then it becomes all the more important to look for retinopathy. So diabetic dermopathy is a constellation of well-demarcated, hyperpigmented atrophic depressions, macules or papules. They are located on the anterior surfaces of the lower, usually in patients with diabetes. most common cutaneous marker of diabetes. It is found in about 12.5 to 40% of patients, and mostly in elderly. So here example of a case series of 100 consecutive inpatients or outpatients at a hospital in India with diabetes and skin lesions. So in this, diabetic dermopathy common is 36% patients. So but the incidence was much lower in the second case series. There was another case series of 500 patients attending diabetes clinic. 0.2% were diagnosed with dermopathy. So the authors concluded that because majority of patients were well controlled in this study, their fasting was less than 130 in 60% patients. So that might be one reason, because cutaneous signs of chronic hyperglycemia are less in these patients. So sometimes these lesions may also be present in non-diabetic individuals, especially when there is circulatory compromise. So the cause in general is not known. It may be related to some trauma, mechanical or thermal trauma, because these patients have neuropathy also. So they may be having reduced temperature sensation also. So mechanical trauma or thermal trauma, especially of neuropathy. And these lesions have also been classified as vascular because on histology, they demonstrate red blood cell extravasation and capillary basement membrane thickening. In one study, patients with type 1, they had markedly reduced skin blood flow at normal appearing skin areas, also on the peritoneal surface of legs, compared with type 1 control and non-diabetic control patients. Diabetic dermopathy, there is an association has been seen. There was one study, Turkey study, diabetic dermopathy to cellular neuropathy. Patients without skin lesions, and a high prevalence of Kappa syndrome was also found in these patients. So the symptoms, the appearance can vary person to person. Generally, there are reddish brown, round or oval, scar-like patches. They are usually typically asymptomatic, and lesions, they are primarily on the shins. They can be found on other parts of the body, but less likely. So other parts that maybe they are thigh, trunk, or arms. And even though these lesions are not good to look at, they are unpleasant to look at, but the condition is in general harm in itself. The condition is harmless. Diabetic dermopathy generally does not cause symptoms like burning or stinging, and patients can develop one lesion or cluster of lesions on the skin and other parts of the body. And generally, their lesions are bilateral. When that means they occur on both the sides, or legs and arms. And other than this, there are no other symptoms. So there is no discharge or no ulcers in these lesions. They are not contagious. So we have to examine it clearly for the proper diagnosis. Most of the times, biopsy is not required for diagnosis. It is just a clinical diagnosis. So treatment, unfortunately, there is no specific treatment. We don't have anything that offers a helping hand to a patient with diabetic dermopathy. For most of the patients, we either end up or we advise them few management tips. We may tell them to use some mostly available moisturizers, either oils, especially for dry skins. Dermatologists and wonder what they are prescribing. They are not given any specific treatment, because we do not specific treatment. We just tell them there are is present, and moisturizers or oils are given. So, but the drawbacks of simple moisturizers or oils is that they only moisturize the dry skin, and they have properties like healing of the shin spots, antimicrobial or antioxidant properties. Also, many of them, they contain paraben, which means they may not be suitable for every skin. This has a tendency to cause any degree of skin irritation or inflammation. And diabetic patient skin is already thin. when very sensitive. So if a paraben containing topical item is applied, they may get more irritation or inflammatory lesions. So this may not be a very good option. Ideally requires topical agents that hydrate the skin and protect the transepidermal water loss and reduce the signs inflammation or fasten up the reepithelialization process by increasing the blood collagen fibers. So, and also along with this, so there may, if an agent is able to provide these properties also, that is antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and anti-inflammatory, antioxidant free, then it will be a win-win situation for our patient. So if we get all these properties together, means treatment that hydrates the skin, creates the skin barrier, prevents the itchy intensity, facilitating and prevents microbial infection, we will be able to manage diabetic dermopathy better. So these are some of the agents that, so this is a new preparation, Diaglit Soft, that is there, which has a number of all these constituents. So glycerin, which effectively moisturizes, it acts as a humectant. It helps in collagen in the skin. Then aloe vera juice, which is a natural effective ingredient for improving skin hydration, like humectant mechanism again. Then liquid paraffin, it physically blocks the transepidermal water loss and creates a hydrophobic barrier over the skin, contribute matrix between corneocytes, and have the most pronounced effect when applied to the slightly dampened skin. Coconut oil, which acts as an emollient, hydrates and improves the skin softness, flexibility, and smoothness. Oatmeal powder, it is for its moisturizing, cleansing, antioxidative, and anti-inflammatory properties. Marine native collagen, marine hydrolyzed elastin, which acts as protein rejuvenators. We have neem, which also has been, which works as an emollient, which easily gets incorporated into liposomes and make the skin texture softer and smoother. Tocopherol acetate, beta-rated hydroxidants, and helps relief. So that would be all from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor. It was really a nice discussion, ma'am. And I would like to request all my participating doctors, if they have any query, kindly write down onto the chat box. And if I am able to see, ma'am, we have 2 questions into the chat box, ma'am.
So how often you find the patient of diabetic dermopathy? I say in my practice, I do not find it that common, like as it was mentioned in one of the studies, 30%. But yes, we do get few patients who have these lesions. So then can diabetic neuropathic patient will develop dermopathy also? So not every neuropathic patient will develop dermopathy, but if dermopathy is there, that means patient might be having neuropathy also. Then we have to look for neuropathy also.
Right, ma'am. If any other doctor want to ask any question, kindly write down into the chat box.
So there are many other lesions also that I have not discussed. It's actually a very broad concept. A number of other lesions are there, which I have not covered in this talk because it would not have been possible to grasp all those things in a single sitting. So other than, because many a times when these lesions are there, many a times we refer our patients to dermatologists. So but from our side, what is important is that we should at least look for the medical things. So we should at least look for complications associated, especially microvascular complications, and try to treat them.
Yes, ma'am. And I feel if we are giving them only a option of moisturizer, that will not be a sufficient for our patient, which you have said us. that it would be more good that if we give something which is not only going to moisturize the skin of my patient, but along with this, it should give certain, antibacterial properties, because my diabetic patient skin is very sensitive. So yes, on this note, I feel we don't have more questions into our chat box. If you permit me, ma'am, should I close down it?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Savita, for joining with us today. It was really an insightful discussion for us as well as for our listeners. I would also like to thank all our doctors for being with us and for their active participation during the session. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day. Thank you, Dr. Savita, for joining with us.
Thank you.